Hello, my name is Jessica, and today I'm going to talk to you about a Capstone project that I developed. With this project, we had to go through an approval process with our professor with how we created the ideal, our plans for the project, and I chose something that I thought would benefit me for my future career choice. I plan to be an elementary K through 5 teacher, so I wanted to develop my Capstone project keeping that in mind. I wanted it to help me gain knowledge and get hands-on experience for something I plan to do. So I talked to my professor and told him my ideal was to work with a 2nd grade teacher. I currently substitute and tutor at Elkhorn Elementary. So I talked to Mrs. Turner, who teaches 2nd grade, and asked her if she would mentor me throughout this project, and she agreed to do so. So I knew I wanted to do a math lesson, so I gathered materials and I looked through the books, and I decided on the geometry lesson. To sum up this project, a little summary of it, I wanted to create lesson plans that would go through this unit. I created some I can statements. I also created a summative review. That way I could check and see the success of the students, how well they did with the plans that I had made for Ms. Turner to use. My goal statement for this project was I wanted to effectively create this lesson so Ms. Turner could use the lessons and plans that I have created to successfully teach the students. And after the lesson, I plan to use the summative review and assessment to see how these children did, to see how if I succeeded with my goals. I created these ideals because, like I said, I want to teach. I want to teach smaller children. And I felt that I would gain the knowledge and gain hands-on experience that would be very important. With the timeline, that was a little bit tricky. I knew the date that I had to have my project approved, and I knew the date that the project was due. However, it was up to me to use time management skills because there was a lot to do with this project. I had to manage my research time. I had to manage and allow time for me to develop the lesson plans. I had to manage and leave time for Mrs. Turner to teach these lessons and me assist her in her classroom. And then I had to manage time for me to bring it all in, put it in my project to submit. As with any project, I think that everyone has roadblocks and challenges. I did with mine. As I started this project, I quickly learned of the huge amounts of resources, of materials that was out there for me to create this geometry lesson. I had first planned to do a 5-day lesson. I had to expand that and do an 8-day lesson and leave the 9th day for a review. I had to look at this information. I had to take this mass amounts of resources and gather all this stuff in, and I had to compile it down. I had to pick what was the most important and what would teach the students the most, what would help them succeed the most. So with any project that you do, I think you should be open to changes. I don't think anything should be set in concrete. I think things are variable, they change. Outcomes. I think I achieved my goal. I was very happy and I was successful with completing this Capstone project. I was proud of myself. It was challenging for me to do this. It was challenging for me to develop this lesson plan. This was the first time I had ever developed plans on my own, and I think that I did this and Mrs. Turner was used to effectively teach the students. If I had to do this project over, I think I would scale down my ideal, because now I know what a grand scale and how huge it can be. I know how big it can be. I learned how complicated it was and how hard it is on teachers to create a lesson plan that will be effective for each student in that room, because each student, you have such a diverse classroom. Each student learns different. You have visual learners, you have auditory learners, you have learners that learn more hands-on. And if I had it to do over with, I think that's one thing I would have added in my project. I would have developed a plan that allowed me to break up and make small sections for the children to rotate through. I would have sections set up for the hands-on learners. I would have sections set up for the visual learners. I would have sections set up for the auditory learners. I think I would have researched more activities and let the children rotate through them, because I think they would have been able to learn more effectively if I had done that. Behind me, you can see some I can statements that I created that I wanted to check off once the unit had been taught and we had reviewed it. Some of them were, I can name and draw the different shapes, such as a triangle, quadrilateral, hexagon. I can recognize and draw faces. I wanted them to be able to count the vertices. I wanted them to be able to tell me if parts was equal. I wanted them to be able to visually see that two things could be equal even if the shapes look different, and be able to put this together. The summative review that I did was to let me know the success of the class. I was very pleased with the outcome, and I think that for my first plan all on my own, that it was a success. Like I said, there would be things that I changed, there would be things that I would add. I think the small rotation in groups would be a good thing to add, in different projects that you could add. But I do think that it was a successful capstone project, and I look forward to doing more of this in my future career. Thanks.